First things first, let's recap. Resistance: The Gathering Storm is the first installment of 2 novels written by William C. Dietz. Dietz nuts. The story fleshes out the two-dimensional character we learned to love in Resistance: Fall of Man. We see the aftermath of both London and Iceland, setting up the stage for Resistance 2. In a story set 4 months after these events, we learn about the life in the United States as the Chimera begin their assault on North America. The Liberty Defense Perimeter, the LDP, as we're going to call it, is under construction, and the populace is torn between 2 groups. Those who stand by President Noah Grace are sheltered in protection camps, which we will touch on later. The rebel faction, because every good story needs one, is Freedom First. Freedom First was an underground American resistance group that opposed the Chimera and the United States government under President Noah Grace. Now, with all that background info, I'm going to attempt to summarize the entire book in one video.
Resistance 2, baby!
Prelude. June 30th, 1908, meteor containing alien Chimera DNA crashed into Russia, known as the Tunguska event. 43 years later, all of England is overrun with Chimera. The Brits are aided by America. Nathan Hale was a sergeant for the US Army in 1951 after his entire company was eviscerated in England during the Battle of York. Hale was infected in the field when a spire attack led crawlers to wipe out his company. He was the only known person to wake up after being infected by the Chimeran virus. The events of Resistance 1 take place. Hale is evacuated by a Serpa squad led by Major Richard Blake. Hale is sedated as a precaution and informed that they are en route to Iceland to undergo testing. Iceland. As you guys saw in the last video, which I'll leave a link to right here, Sergeant Hale and Major Blake arrive in Iceland to see that it's under attack by the Chimera. Their VTOL is shot down by a Goliath and they need to now navigate their way to the evac zone. This is where we meet Daedalus, formerly known as Jordan Shepard. Blake attempts to kill the imprisoned Chimeran leader, but he escapes after grabbing Hale and telepathically speaking to him. He says to him, "They are calling to us. Can you hear them? It is beautiful." He then escapes Serpa facility and leaves Hale and Blake to After heavy casualties, a handful of Serpa soldiers, Hale, Blake, and Dr. Fedor Malikov make their way to escape in a VTOL as the Chimeran forces converge. This is where Blake informs Hale that they are heading to Serpa 3 in San Francisco to undergo further testing and team up with the others, the Sentinels, or as I like to call them, the Serpentals. Resistance: The Gathering Storm. What are the Serpentals? The first conception of the Serpentals was proposed on July 14, 1948 by Serpa Tactical Ops. Serpa sought to create a class of super soldiers that were on par with the Chimera. To this end, Serpa authorized the creation of Project Abraham, a bioengineering endeavor that culls volunteers from military and subjects them to medical experimentation. The Serpentals are soldiers that are injected with Chimeran DNA and possess their abilities to retain partial immunity to the virus. Hale, alongside Jordan Shepard, are the only 2 participants that are injected with pure Chimeran DNA. Hale was a success and exhibited no symptoms, while Shepard mutated into what we now saw as Daedalus. According to Serpa, 1 Serpental is equivalent of 3 foot soldiers due to their speed, durability, and recovering capabilities. Events in the Gathering Storm. The events in the Gathering Storm take place from November of 1951 to December of 1951. Hale is now a 2nd lieutenant under the authority of Serpa and the current president, Noah Grace. A series of missions are held where Hale commands his squad into Grey territory for Grey Tech, Chimeran technology. We are introduced to the new species of Chimera. These species include the Spinner, the Grim, and the Chameleon. After his mission in North Dakota, already invaded and controlled by the Chimera, he returns to his childhood home in hopes to make contact with his family, on the low. Finding his childhood home torn apart, Hale learns that everyone was killed, except for his foster sister, Susan Farley. Hale finds 2 teenagers hiding out in his family's barn. A battle ensues when a squad of hybrids, Grims, and Steelheads arrive. Hale manages to escape with 2 civilians and make it to the protection camp down south. Hale gets a glimpse of what these civilians are going through. We jump to President Noah Grace in his cabinet meeting in Washington, D.C. Noah Grace reveals the details for Project Omega. Project Omega is negotiations with Daedalus to form a truce. Leave America alone, and they will have unimpeded control over the rest of the world. A man named Henry Walker, who's the Secretary of War for the United States under the Grace administration, is present. This man secretly recorded Grace and was planning to provide these recordings to Freedom First in Chicago. Chicago right now is completely taken over by the Chimera. It is the Chimera and Freedom First occupying the area exclusively. We jump back to Hale, who enters Major Blake's office. He is reprimanded for his night out in North Dakota. The Code of Zero correspondence is once again instated. It states that no Serpa personnel can make contact with their relatives. All members are listed as KIA. Because of this, Hale is sent on a grunt mission to Chicago to intercept Henry Walker, who is deemed a traitor by the US government. Chicago is literally up right now. Walker isn't there. A whole mess of things happens. We'll break it down for you. Hale finds out that Susan is alive and part of Freedom First. Daedalus is captured using his wife, Hannah Shepard. Washington, D.C. is hit by a spire attack. Grace moves his HQ to Denver, Colorado. Hale thwarts an assassination attempt on Grace by his sister, Susan Farley, sending her to prison. The location of Walker is discovered as a Chimera Invasion center known as The Pit, and a team led by Hale is dispatched to find and retrieve him. Walker is discovered in a Chimera cocoon. The recording was retrieved by Hale, where he listened to it single-handedly. Grace is in Sheridan, Wyoming, preparing to carry out Project Omega with a captured Daedalus. A Chimeran fleet ship above the government bunker is just hovering there. As Grace reveals his plans, busts in Nathan Hale. Hale aims his carbine and fires. Grace is dead. Daedalus escapes to his flagship in the Pandemonium. Major Blake ordered to inform Harvey McCullen of his succession in office. McCullen soon succeeded his predecessor and gradually proceeded to reverse Grace's policies and allowed America to take a more active role in the war. 3 years pass. Hale, after his inhibitor treatment, as a first lieutenant and the leader of Echo Team. And that's it. That's Resistance: The Gathering Storm. What comes next is Episode 2, Meet the Serpentals. Hope you guys liked the video. If you want any more, hit that subscribe button, or don't. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'll see you.